Bar staff of Reddit, have you ever had a menus the Safi old drink escape, and how often does it happen? I had a woman at a bar on business one night. She came up to me after about 20 minutes after I sat down alone. I was having a rough day. She apparently was having a great one. Sitting there drinking my beer, she kept talking to me, grabbing me, and kept asking for us to leave because she would duck my brains out. Mind you, this woman was an obvious regular, but land had been overserved at one point. I got up and pretended my Asian buddy across the way, actually a stranger, was my best friend. She eventually made her way over and kept touching me. I asked the bartender if she could help me. She actually pretended to be a friend of mine, also said I was a part owner of the establishment, brought me into the office and let me sit there with her and the guy in the office. They gave me free food, let me finish my drink, had a good conversation, and some to go food too. They felt terrible that a new guy had all these problems, I guess, but they treated me well and got me out of there unscathed. I can still see her whacked out hairstyle in the cigarette smoke that she stank of. Cooler, the bartender to do that. I used to work in a bar in Orlando, and one Friday night we're pretty heavy and have a guy regular and a lady on a date at the bar, and it looks pretty well until he asks for 2 stomach shots. AKA, please help me, I really don't want to be here with him, and he excuses himself as our manager calls him a taxicab and explained to the lady, and she gets mad and tries to leave, saying that a man should pay for the bill no matter what. I used to bartend and do front desk at a hotel. One of my regulars was in for the week. We all nice guy, very friendly and happily married. We also had a cuckoo bird lady staying with us that week. She was decent looking, but death had crazy eyes. They were both at the bar and they were talking for a while, and being a nice guy, he didn't want to outright blew her off. I guess he stops at the front desk to say what's up, and we talked for a bit. While the girl is just standing behind him, he shoots me a look that says, "Get me out of this situation," as he starts walking towards the elevator. Once she gets in the elevator, I called him back to ask a question about Detroit because I was going there next week. He got off the elevator, but so did she. Then I told the lady there was a problem with the card she had on file. There wasn't, and he slipped away. He called me thanking me a few minutes later. Only had one incident of a man using ask for Angela Ukasa Fiad scheme gay kid on a bad date. His date had been extremely overbearing, and even having to witness it from the bar was extremely uncomfortable. We smuggled him into the kitchen and out the side door while his date went to the bathroom and called him a taxi. Date came back from the bathroom, asked where the kid was. I just went down. A date started getting aggro with me, so supervisor ended up throwing this guy out by the collar. It honestly doesn't get used enough by either men or women, especially here in the UK. It absolutely sucks, especially when you as a bartender can't really legally do much. Sure, you risk not only your job but the bar's reputation. Edit, just for clarification, the victim was 19. Legal age of drinking alcohol in UK is 18, so yes, he is still technically a kid. I have been in a scenario like this. I was a busboy at a local pizza bar, so I just started my shift and I'm clearing a table and everything, and I noticed a table where a female is being extremely loud and abrasive. I walk back to the dish room and the guy knocks his drink over, so I go to get it. He hands me a napkin and pretends to help me, so I go back into the kitchen and it just says, "Call 911. So I tell my manager and he this, sir, so I told his waitress to bring him another drink and to say don't worry about the drink. Accidents happen. She is getting worse and worse, and we all can hear her saying that if he tries to leave her, she would heal herself." So about 12 minutes later, some cops show up. The guy's in tears. When they show up, he runs to the bathroom and my boss points at the table and they take her out to the restaurant. This is where she got wild. She begins to take her clothes off one by one to avoid being escorted out of the restaurant. So here we are during dinner rush, naked as crazy person, stripping down, running around tables, screaming about her boyfriend. She got to the point where she was grabbing silverware and throwing at the cops, and they did a stack all her and put her in cuffs, dragged her naked as out to the car. The poor boyfriend is in tears in the bathroom. I go check on him and tell him what happened, and he apologized. I was like, dude, what caused all of this? He said, we met on Puff and this was our first date. I had no clue what to do at it. While thanks for the guild, guys, I will try and respond to as many of these as I can. Yes, I have had this happen in a venue I managed in Melbourne. The lady in Question became very forward, slightly abusive and threatening. The gentleman was obviously concerned for himself and did not like the way the date had progressed. We booked him a taxi and walked him out a back exit. Whilst he was going to the toilet, I spoke to the lady and covered his half of the bill. She became hysterical, paid, and then left. There was a huge power imbalance. Edit. While that went a bit crave, it is my first gold and silver, thank you kind people. Yep, I work in a nightclub in a small city in England, in Lincolnshire. I once had a guy who seemed to only recently turned 18 ask if Angela was working. Ask for Angela as a UK scheme that helps prevent violent sexual assaults in 8th grade. I knew about the ask for Anjana scheme in. Immediately I brought him into the gas washroom. Turns out there were a bunch of lasses encouraging this one lass into seducing him, grinding up on him, trying to kiss him and groping him. This apparently continued even after the man had walked away into other parts of the nightclub after showing and saying he wasn't interested. I had reported this to my supervisor, who was a little hesitant at first but eventually called the bouncers into the back room too. We explained the situation to Rob. Now these guys are basically 200 to 300 pound tanks who you would expect to joke about this and tell this guy to man up and enjoy it. But to my surprise, they took it seriously as well. They managed to track down this group, 5 women, including the one who was doing the grinding, and they escorted all of them out of the building. Meanwhile, a taxi had already been prepared by my supervisor, and the taxi firm was literally down the road, so it didn't take long for it to arrive. As courted the man through the back stairs that continues down to the stock cellar, but leads off to the side exit of the building near the bins. A taxi was parked just outside. It would be a rare occasion when someone uses our Scangilla where I work, let alone a man, so I'm really glad that all of the staff took it seriously and helped as much as they could. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up too. Those curious, it was in Lincoln. Brilliant town for a night out, tbh. Not quite the same, but I worked in a coffee shop on a busy high street this year and had a similar sort of thing happened. We noticed one customer had come in, ordered, and sat opposite the counter, which meant that he was staring at me and my other female colleagues for about 30 minutes straight. We wondered if he was high, as he didn't seem aware of himself, but his gaze was following me as I walked up and down the counter, which was about 8 m long. We then closed in. The customer sitting inside left, including a very nice young couple who walked up the street away from the shop, as did the weird guy. About 10 minutes later, the couple came back to the door, which we had locked, and knocked, saying they'd left her phone behind. They came in and told us that the man had followed them for 10 minutes towards their home, so they came back to hide. If a security guy counts as bar staff, was in a nightclub working instead of a friend who had an exams next day. I took his 2 shift since I had whole week free. There was a date where the guy was definitely afraid of a girl, asked for permission to engage, and decided to calm down. I took the man tell security, but where you have camera control, who was literally shaking out of fear. I had him calm down, paid for cold soda myself, and gave one to the guy, and I drank one myself instead of cigarettes. I hate smoking after it, and nice talk. Turned out he was a booth nisman. I call him a taxi, wanted to give me equivalent of $300. I said no, it's my job, but he insisted. Damn, it's salad when you pay. Chech equals 800 United States dollars. Taxi arrived and took that guy to his home. He thanked me once again and gave me his number. Sadly, I don't have it anymore, but still, nice thing to happen. And just in case it happened in Poland, I've never had a man say anything. I've had a woman write down on a napkin and handed to me by discreet handshake that said call 911. I'm afraid, so I called 911. Because IDK say call the cops. I'm not about to doubt it and be held liable for anything, and turns out the dude had 3 dead caps in his trunk. Homegirl dodged a bullet. Craziest bar story of my whole career. How do those Safi odds work when the person you are trying to get away from is the same gender? They put the signs with the special Safi ord in the restroom, and they work great when you need to get away from the opposite sex. But how does that work when the person you have wanted to get rescued from is the same sex? Because if they use the restroom, they have seen the sign with the Safi order, and if you use it in front of them, they will know what you are doing. Edit. Insane amount of upvotes in such a short amount time. 2000 plus in 2 hours. WTF? What if the person you are trying to get away from knows the Safi horde? This is where it breaks Down for me, you are on a date but can get to the bar by yourself without them hearing, you'd think just outright saying there is a problem rather than a euphemism would be better as it could be. I just don't like this person right up. To this is an aggressive stalker call. The police, if they do hear you say it, they could be anywhere from disappointed to violently outraged. It also puts a lot on the base staff. They are responsible for smuggling someone out and dealing with the person left alone after I had one really bad date that stands out. I knew the bartenders because I was a regular. She was from out of town 20 minutes away, not far, and when I met her, a few things stood out. First off, she was nothing like her OkCupid profile common thing I've learned over the years. For every 1 second she kept talking like IDK, saying weird stuff and using weird words like it's all okay when I die, I'm going to leave, I walk up to God. And she kept using words that have no relevance to English to describe the act of dying or being dead. I've dated religious people, Wiccans, all kinds of stuff, but I've never found another psychological specimen quite like this one. The thing that really broke the camel's back was when she took the tomato off a burger and ducking threw it on the floor, saying that all vegetables taste like dirt was what got me. I asked Chuck, my bartender, if he could distract her, and he did. I left a 100 and promptly left. The bar staff got a $40 tip and they never forgot that. To this day they still make me good drinks and cut me good deals. Love them all. That girl probably tasted like dirt, and her personality belongs next to that tomato on the floor. I used to work in a high quality seafood restaurant as a chucker. There were never any safe yards, but there were a lot of telling looks. People behind the bar hear a lot of your conversations. They usually know what's going on before you do. I've had to escort more people than my job required off of the premises. Look at the bus staff in the eyes and slightly shake your head, and we know not a bartender. But a few weekends ago, a group of us, including my partner, were in a bar after a geek. I sometimes get this weird face when I'm drunk and trying to process information that, from what I gathered, makes me look like I am not okay at all. I had a tiny disagreement with my fella. Nothing serious, just usual different opinions, but when he was explaining, I clearly had that look at the woman behind him, and I made eye contact, and she stood there until she realized we were okay. Felt really nice. Someone would stand watch over a stranger just to make sure they were okay. I'm a bouncer, had a regular dude meeting at him to date. She was pretty hot and I gave him a thumbs up. She was very polite and nice too. Drinks later, she became an utter rick. I walked up to him to see how it was going, and he explained while she was in the toilet how much or overage she was being to everyone. He came up to me, said how good the whiskey was he just had, and I knew straight away he's a beer man through and through. He wanted to bail. I asked him if he would stay if he didn't meet her. He nodded, so I kicked the girl out and told her she was too drunk. He met his girlfriend of now 3 years 2 hours later after I kicked her out. Not bar staff, and didn't happen to me, but my boyfriend, military, was roofied in a bar by a girl before we were dating. It's actually apparently not that unheard of for women near military bases to drug trade or coerce men into unprotected sex so they can get pregnant, since the military will take a massive chunk, I think 30 to 50% of his paycheck, and give it to the baby mama. His buddy got him out before anything happened, but he doesn't remember that night. I'm a lady bartender in the first decade of my career. I've yet to see this happen with a guest. We did have to ban a single mom who was obsessive about one of our male staff. She would come in and try to cute her way into getting his schedule, phone number, car description from other staff. She'd wander around the building looking for him. Meanwhile, her young sons run around the restaurant, going ducking nuts. If she found him, she would stand there until he agreed to go out with her again. She's verbally abused some of our youngest staff and routinely stiffed on her taps. Becky, stop drinking and driving with your kids in the car. You ducking Lou. Ever bartender supervisor, if you come up to me feeling unsafe, you don't need a Safi ward. Tell me what is happening and I will take care of you. I don't care what gender you are, all are welcome in the establishment to enjoy themselves. But nobody should feel unsafe, not hack in cool. I would be sad to work in a bar where this was needed, not out of caution, but perpetuity, and I am glad I do not. There should be a different drink for guys, like how there's a specifically advertised drink for women, maybe a Nabana. Then you can thank a banner for the rescue. Okay, I'm not a bartender, but one time I was in a club with a couple of friends and an acquaintance sees me walk by while she's with an older guy and signals me to come over. I come over. She says hi and mouths help me. I didn't realize, so I leaned in and she said it. In my ear, she politely introduced me to the guy, then asked me if I wanted to dance, so obviously I said yes. As we walked off, the guy said something and asked where we were going. We just kept walking. We danced for a couple songs, then went our separate ways. Music. You.